for my family, that's Kagyu, our devotion to our lineage is incredibly strong. And the head of our lineage is the Karmapa, who's now the 17th Karmapa, Ugyen Dorji. And so the Karmapa was giving teachings in Bodh Gaya. He does it every year. These are called Kagyu Monlam, and Monlam is aspiration. So these are the aspiration prayers, and thousands of people come, up to 10,000, 12,000 people. And in 2007, January of 2007, I showed up in Bodh Gaya, irritated to be there because incredibly dusty and dirty. There because my family, it's the one thing my family demands or insists on, that we show up once a year in Bodh Gaya. And I was sitting there receiving teachings among thousands of people, and the Karmapa started speaking about vegetarianism. But the context that he spoke in was not sort of this, this animal rights. Well, it was, but not starting with animal rights. He started with the Bodhisattva prayer. Again, it comes up. And he asked how many of us actually know this prayer and use this prayer, recite it daily. And I would say easily half, 2/3, at least 5,000 monks and nuns are there. So all of them, plus a lot of the lay people there, so a lot of people, hands go up, wave of hands. And then he said, okay, so how many of you practice this? And the prayer ends with, may I cease the suffering of all sentient beings, all living beings, right? And then he said, and how many of you go and eat meat for lunch and dinner, and sometimes breakfast? And everyone's hands go up. Like, we're Tibetan, but Tibetans love meat. This is, culturally too, it's what we were dependent on. So everyone's hands go up. And then he said, okay, let's talk about this disconnect. And he said, of course, there was a time, geology and geography defines us culturally. But now we are in a time where we don't have to eat meat to survive. We're actually now, most of us who are in exile are living in places where there are substitutes for meat. And look at the example of India, Hinduism and vegetarianism. Easily 500 million people in India who are vegetarians. So he ended up talking about this and said, he broke down the prayer very simply, saying that if we come from compassion, and this is the heart of Tibetan Buddhism, from compassion we should be able to give up meat. And he said, he had been vegetarian for several years, which we didn't know. And he said, and I can't tell you to do it, but I can ask, does anyone want to give up meat, maybe for one day of the week, maybe for one meal of the day, maybe. And then he said, would any of you give it up? I don't know if I can ask, but would any of you give it up permanently? And involuntarily, my hand rose. And there were thousands of people who went vegetarian in that moment. Literally, just all the monks and nuns went vegetarian right there and then. All the monasteries gave up meat. Lay people like me, everybody's hands were going up. And so I had this moment, this sense of euphoria, because I thought, doing this thing that I've wanted to do and tried to do for years, because I worry about climate change and, thinking about animal rights, thinking about deforestation in the Amazon, all kinds of reasons I've thought I should be vegetarian.
And the climate change one being the amount of water and also the cost of raising animals.
Absolutely. And then the methane, which is a greenhouse gas.
Yes.
So on one hand, there's this euphoria that you're doing this thing, and it actually makes you a better religious person. It made me a better Buddhist right there and then. It's like the shortcut, But then, while I'm experiencing this, my brain is kind of clocking what's happening, going, what are you doing? How did this happen? It's so uncomfortable to give up meat, and you love meat, and then suddenly looking around and thinking, oh my God, I never thought of this. Faith changes behavior. It never occurred to me before that actually faith not only changes behavior, it makes you happy to change behavior. You're euphoric to change that behavior. It was an epiphany for me, because we had worked with faith leaders and religious leaders in projects before, and I had been part of that, but never thought of them as a universal or worldwide stakeholder group. It
Yes.
just hadn't occurred to me that faith leaders could ask for behavior change in a way that nobody else can.
Yes.